Hi class, we are going to talk about exception handling basics. First of all, when not to use exception handling. Very important topic because you don't want users to see exceptions. Really important to know that exceptions are not for communication with users when they input the wrong or something that you didn't expect. It's not their fault. If they cannot enter the right input, you are to help them to get to the right input. Otherwise, they will give up on you. So, and also think about when the last time you saw exceptions when you were doing something. How did you feel? You felt helpless. You have no idea what the exception meant because that was not really meant for you to read. And other thing about using exception handling is to not use it to replace bug fixes. You're supposed to fix the bugs or get a workaround if it's not able to be fixed. Yeah. When to use it then? To basically the purpose of it is to handle foreseeable cases that may be unusual, exceptional case will happen, and so you want to have a graceful way of handling those cases. I would say that at least one of the purpose is to communicate that kind of cases with programmers or your future self. Or for example, when the program have this happened, you might send this in the back end from the user's computer to your server, for example. 2 steps in exception handling. First step, throw the exception. It's a signal that something unusual happened. Second step, handle the exception. How to handle it, it really depends on the case. So the simplest in C++, or there are other language using the same kind of way. Try, throw, catch, block. So the try block, you have only a throw -1 here. Usually it's like you check on the unusual case, and if the case is what's happening, then you throw an error. Basically you throw an exception. Let's say not an error, is an exception, and then you catch that piece of data here, and then you do something. But the simplest form actually is this: you try it, there's nothing being done, you just throw the exception -1, and because it's an integer, so we catch it as an integer and give it a name E. So you see, it's a way of passing value. So you throw the value in the try block, and then you catch the value in the catch block. So what kind of value you can use? Any data type, even a class object you can use to be thrown. You can use that to throw the exception. What to do with the value, it really depends on how you want to handle the exception, what makes sense, right? So I'm not to tell you. As the programmer, you have to figure it out. The simplest exception case, so like I said, you can throw a class object as the exception. This is the simplest way, is to have a class with a class name and nothing more. So to use the exception class, let's say you are checking if a equals to 0. If it's equals to 0, then you throw a divide by 0 exception class, which is the example that we have shown. Else C equals to B over A. I guess there should be a catch block here. So this is the simplest exception class. Like I mentioned before, you can have a class object as the exception. To define an exception class is just like defining any class. You can have a class that has nothing in it. Of course, we didn't talk about it, but in this case, you could use it. This is an example of how to use it. Let's say if a equals to 0, then we want to throw this divide by 0 because we actually want to calculate c equals to b over a. And to catch this exception, we just use the class name and a kind of invented object name, because you can actually use this right here if you want to, but in this example we are just printing out an error message. So what is a not so simple exception class? Basically it can be any class. It can be an ADT class if you like, any class that we've talked about or never talked about that you invented can be an exception class. Give you just a very simple example. Let's say negative number. If we don't expect a negative number, we can have even a private variable, the constructors, for example. And then let's say if a is smaller than 0, we can throw a negative number and pass a as the parameter. The rest is the same like the other example. But one thing to notice is that you can only one value can be caught. So it's if there's a possibility, or basically the order matters. What it meant is once an exception is thrown, it wouldn't check on the other. Basically the program will just go to the catch and then handle it, and it wouldn't do anything else that was in the rest of your try block. You can catch different types of values with different catch block also. So let's say the try block was what we saw. The catch then is you can catch the negative number and do something, and if what you caught is a divide by 0, you do something else. But because only one value can be thrown, one exception can be thrown, only one value can be caught and handled. And then there is a default catch-all expression that you can use to catch anything. So let's say we can throw negative number, there should be an a here, and you can throw a divide by 0, and you want to be able to catch it in just one block and just say, hey, there's an error, but not giving too much information, which I don't recommend, but you can do it. And so it is only 3 dots. And the order matters again. And so let's say you want to have many catch blocks, and at the end you want to have a default. Basically it's like the case, right? You can have case 1, case 2, and then you have a default. Here the default is the ... in the inside the parentheses. So order matters. If you put the catch-all in the beginning, then it will always be caught by the catch-all because it's the first catch block to be evaluated. So to recap what we talked about: when to use and when not to use exception handling, what is a try, throw, catch block, how to throw different kinds of exceptions, how to catch different kinds of exceptions, and what to do with the caught exceptions. Next, we are going to talk about how to delay exception handling. We'll see you in the next video.